Hey guys, this is Adan Hagley. I have some exciting news for you. On the 10th of October, I'm going to be having the first of a series of talks entitled Insomniac Talks. And we're going to be talking about some topics: anxiety, depression, what is it? How do we cope with it? So stay tuned to my page, Adan Hagley Music, on Facebook. And then the following day, the 11th of October, is my birthday. So we're going to live stream my debut concert, Insomnia, live at the Little Carib, to celebrate, reminisce a little bit, enjoy the music. So I want you to lock in, stay tuned, see you all there. Okay, greetings everyone. My name is Adan Hagley. I am a pianist, arranger, composer. I'd like to welcome everyone to the first of a series of talks, Insomniac Talks. Last year in 2019, in October, I hosted my first debut album concert and launched my album entitled Insomnia. And Insomnia is inspired by sleepless nights and anxiety and a lot of things that kept me up at night. So part of the initiative with Insomnia, continuing from last year, is having a series of talks about the things that keep me up at night. So today I wanted to have a talk on anxiety, which is the main inspiration behind the album. And so we're going to have a series of talks on anxiety and different aspects of mental health awareness, normalizing the conversation. You know, a lot of people might want to know, what is it? How does it affect people? So I have a special guest today joining me, Mr. Hanif Benjamin. Thank you very much for coming here today.
Pleasure indeed.
So why don't you tell us something about yourself? Tell us about your background.
Oh boy, where do we start? Hanif E. Benjamin. A lot of people ask, what does the EA stand for? That is Aries Anthony.
Okay.
So my mother was a bit excited with the names. I'm grateful because it sounds nice, Hanif E. Benjamin, you know.
Yeah, so it has a nice ring to it.
Yeah. I'm a clinical therapist and clinical traumatologist. So I completed my master's with 2 specializations, one in trauma and one in children and family at Fordham University in New York. Okay. And I continued trauma at the Canada Institute of Traumatology, where I completed my traumatology studies and continued on. So I am a clinical therapist, just really out here helping people. I'm also a youth development specialist, and so the owner of the Center for Human Development group of companies, which is a psychological counseling and training and development company.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. And a musician back in the day.
Which I did not even know. Yeah. Now, for the audience at home, I met Hanif last year. He did a session on mental health wellness at my school, and I was totally impressed by his presentation, his liveliness, and engagement with us, with the staff at the school. So when I had the idea to do this session, I was like, I definitely need to call Hanif, and you were very open. You gave me a number. You said, call you. So I was like, you know what? I have to call Hanif. So I thank you again for joining us today. So tell us, we're talking about anxiety. Could you share with the audience, give an idea of what is anxiety? I have my own experiences, but I want to open up with the professional
right.
understanding of what is anxiety. Because some people, recently I saw some memes online talking about anxiety, which I'll share with in a bit, but I realize some people don't quite understand what it is or how it really affects people. So could you share that?
And the reason for that is because anxiety is something that is quite normal in the scheme of life. You see, we were not designed to always be happy or always sad, and life has in its path ups and downs, you see?
Right.
And so when a person is stressed out or might be experiencing new things, you tend to be a little more anxious than normal.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by anxious, more anxious than normal? I'm referring to your heart might skip up a couple beats.
Definitely.
According to what we say, oh God, my heart skip a beat, you know? Or you may feel sweaty palms, you may feel...
Like me right now.
Yeah, well, and I'll come to that. Or you might find sleepless nights. Now, why is that normal? It's normal because our body was designed like that to respond to the stimuli that comes to us. Now, the problem here is when that anxiety has now taken over normal daily living. Because we all go through at some point a dip where we experience some form of anxiety. But the challenge is living there and allowing it to interrupt your normal daily living is where we have the challenge.
So in other words, anxiety is normal. It's a normal part. It's, from what I understand, it's part of like your fight, flight.
Yeah, your normal.
So you kind of develop as a mechanism to defend yourself when stressful situations.
Definitely.
So it's only when it, as you're saying, if it continues and prevents your normal life from...
You shouldn't be in flight forever.
Forever, correct.
You shouldn't be in fright forever. And I want to start with something that I learned from Dr. Nadine Burke. And she had a video, and I would ask you to look at it at some point. And in that video, she was talking about trauma. And she made an analogy of a forest. And she said, in this forest, you are being chased by a bear. Now, when you're being chased by this bear, all your natural responses are going to kick in. The racing heart, the cortisol, sweaty palms.
Survival.
Yeah, so you're going. And that is the anxiety to be safe. Now, you outrun the bear. And we're back to normal homeostasis. Yeah, you know that advertisement that you see, you know, everything balances off nice because the bear is gone. The anxiety here, though, is when the bear remains, and you are living as if you are being chased by a bear every day. So your body is responding in this way every single day.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. When I was preparing, I was, you know, I understood that we developed that as a way of survival. I was just saying, like, your bear, let's think of like our development as humans. You have to survive and all of these threats. And then now we have a fairly more comfortable life. And we still have this mechanism inside of us that is telling you, hey, you need to run, you need to fight, you need to, it kind of freezes you up. And now we have to find ways of coping and dealing with it.
Correct. Because anxiety can affect anyone from childhood straight to the elderly. Anxiety can come in any form, any shape. And it plays a lot on your emotion, your ability to manage your emotion. That is why you hear a lot of times people say don't make decisions when you are emotional, because your anxiety kicks in, your emotion get all tipsy-turvy, and now you don't know what to do, you don't know what steps to take. And therefore, we ask you to pause. But the thing about anxiety is part of who we are. It is a mental illness. However, it becomes a mental illness when our ability or our inability to cope overwhelms our daily life. Then we know we're in problems.
When you have a very stressful life, like for me, I'm a teacher. So I know part of it for me, well, more recently was learning to cope with that stress. And it came in a lot with teaching because you have a lot to manage in a classroom setting.
Well, I've often said
stress
that
and all plays a part in
it. Teachers, they have a stressful job.
Tell me about
and anxiety is a major part of that.
Yeah.
So coping becomes even more critical.
Yes, which we will touch on a little bit later.
Definitely.
Right? So definitely, as we said, anxiety is normal, guys. It is something that we need as part of our everyday life for survival, but it's when it goes on too long, that it becomes a problem, right? So for me, how does it affect people in their everyday lives? Like for me, the first time I had a experience with anxiety would be, I started to realize at night, it's like I can't sleep and my heart started racing. So how does it, from what I understand, it affects you physically, not just mentally in your head, but actually has physical.
3 major areas.
Yeah.
Your thoughts or cognitive.
Right.
Your emotions or feelings, and your actions.
Right.
Right? So anxiety tends to attack in its first place your mind, your thinking. Your thinking becomes skewed because that is where the anxiety is. Before you have the physiological symptoms, your mind has already said to your body, I feel this way.
Right.
Then your body is going to respond to what your mind is saying. And so you have the whole panic in the brain, the racing thoughts, and I'm talking about thoughts where you can't sleep. Thoughts where your brain is literally, you ever, I don't know if you remember the old cortinas, long time old cortinas. You know
cortinas?
What? Yeah, it somehow always used to be blue. I don't know.
What is that?
But it's one of those cars that don't mash up.
Oh, God.
Yeah, cortina. And when you're putting that in the gear, you're permanently on gear 1.
Oh, Lord.
You know when you're driving gear, it's like you're permanently. So your mind is permanently in gear 1. There is no gear 2, gear 3, relaxing, gear 4. It's permanently in gear 1. By the way, going up a hill.
Oh, gosh.
And so your mind is constantly racing. And so you are trying to now catch up with what your mind is doing. And that is why sleep is almost impossible. Because here it is, you are trying to catch up. Now, if you were thinking about one thing, that would have been cool. But when you're having these racing thoughts, your mind is all over the world and back. And so you're literally tired.
Well,
you're literally tired.
Right now, you seem to be talking my life right now, because my first experience, as I said, happened to me in 2000. Well, when I became aware of it, because you say it's a normal thing that it probably happens all the time, but when it became, very much aware of it in 2009, when I was going off to college. And I remember in that August vacation time, it was like I thought something was wrong with me, to the point that my heart was racing so fast that I was like, hey, Mom, I need to go check my heart because I can't sleep and this thing is happening. And she said, okay. So I went to the doctor, checked my heart, all of this. They're like, yeah, Adan, you're fine. It's in your head. And I'm like, what do you mean it's in my head? Like, clearly it's something physical. It's like, no, it's in your head. And that's the first time I started to understand how those things in your head could affect you physically.
And you were going to a new environment.
A lot of anticipation, excitement, nervousness over the change. And that's where the journey with the music as well started, which we'll touch on later as well. But I didn't know that it could have such a physical impact on you.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I went away to college, the anxiety was real. And what I learned in college, because I was also a resident assistant there, a lot of people didn't make year 1. They didn't finish year 1.
That is true.
Because of that level of anxiety. A lot of people were missing home. I remember we had international people on that campus, Monroe College, and people had to go back home because they couldn't manage the anxiety. They're bright, but they couldn't deal with that newness. And it does something to you physiologically. So you get to a point where you can't eat, you can't sleep, you're no longer interested in things that you once were. You have now reclused yourself, you're in a corner alone. I mean, you see the change. You're no longer able to concentrate on mundane, normal things. You lie down in your bed whole day. You understand? The simple act of getting up and brushing your teeth becomes painful. Right. And I'm talking on the far end of the spectrum here. And that is why I made the distinction earlier that you can go from a normal, oh boy, to, Jesus, somebody call 911. That is how serious it is. Now, anxiety is very debilitating. It can literally shut you down. what I find interesting about you, and I'm sure we will talk about it later, and with most creative, that is where the creativity comes in. Because not being able to sleep, you translate that into something else, you translate it into, but most people who are not creative, where do you translate it?
Where do you put that?
Drugs, substances, and other risky type of behavior.
Yeah.
You see? Because you need to feed the mind, because the mind is constant. Your body is really on a rampage. You don't know what to do, so you find ways to self-soothe.
Yeah.
And so for most, something in terms of drugs or some level of substance or risky behavior becomes the norm.
Yes, which is definitely part of the creative things that you see people struggle with, right? But we're going to take a little pause. So part of the initiative for Insomniac Talks is I wanted to get some experiences from my friends, colleagues, musicians, creatives, talking about their experiences with anxiety. So we're going to take a short pause and hear from some of my colleagues on their experiences with anxiety.
Hi folks, my name is Omavi Landjivang. I am 32 years old. I am a multimedia entrepreneur, so that means I cover the bases of photography, videography, write-ups, slide animation, anything content creation. I'm also an EMT, hoping to start paramedic training soon. I'm a published author, and I am a lot of things. Yeah, I dabble with a bit of music. I just love creativity. I love life. So I try my best to be involved with a lot of things. A lot of people though would probably, if they didn't know me before, would have known me for something that happened to me in 2019, something extremely significant. In 2019, I was diagnosed with something called AML. It's an acronym for acute myeloid leukemia. It's quite aggressive. It is statistically rare, as well as I was diagnosed with another type of cancer called myelofibrosis. So I had two cancers living in me at that point in time. And boy, I tell you, it was it was something straight out of a movie. I was healthy and everything, and then bam, I just got hit with this diagnosis. Of course, mentally, I wasn't in a good place. I remembered within the first week, all I was thinking about was like death, and I just felt the weight of the world on me. The whole ordeal, I was practically living in the hospital. And just the whole ordeal, the treatment, everything was just bad. So much so that in 2020, I am now in a stage of remission, and I still live in the hospital room. The trauma, a lot of times people would ask, they'd be like, how you feeling? You're doing better, everything cool? I'd be like, you know what, physically I feel wonderful. I feel like nothing happened to me. Mentally though, I am in a lot of times a very dark place. The trauma, that post-trauma is a lot of triggers. Sometimes I watch a movie, or you read a book, or you read an article, or sometimes somebody just wants some information because somebody they know is probably going through the same thing that I would have went through, and bam, I get hit, and immediately I'm back to square one, back to being just depressed, back to thinking life is so unfair, and all these kind of things. The anxiety is real, and it's something that I'm actively, working on. I think I first realized that this anxiety was starting to become a problem. Sometime I was on my way to Port of Spain. I was driving, and I was listening to the radio, and somebody had called. I was listening to the gospel station, and someone called to give a testimony about having cancer and believing God for that healing. And bam, immediately started to hyperventilate. I couldn't concentrate, so I had to pull across on the shoulder, park up the car, call my brother and be like, yo, so is what going on and stuff like that. So much so that he wanted to know if to come and meet me on the highway and stuff. I was like, no, it's cool, and I just really wanted to talk about it in that time. And that's how it comes. It comes in sometimes it comes very subtle. Sometimes it comes in waves. Sometimes it's triggered by people with good intentions. They may be like, hey, you're so lucky, you're so blessed by God, because I remember XYZ had this and bam, they didn't make it, and immediately I'm back to that place again. How I cope though, I cope with a lot of, I practice a lot of positive affirmations, like, you are healed and you're going to be okay and you're a survivor. Gratitude is an extremely, extremely big part of my coping method and my coping regimen. So I'm always in this perpetual state of gratitude. Hey, I thank God, I thank you for life, I thank you for sight, I thank you for whatever it may be, and those are the things that would help to curb the anxiety. Also talking to persons and stuff like that. And me, I had, prior to this incident of me being diagnosed, I had a history of depression. My mom would have died when I was 18. We grew up in a single parent home. So me having to undergo that trauma and then undertake the responsibility of being an adult organizing home. At the point in time I was writing A-levels, so managing CAPE and all of that. It was a lot for me, so it led me down a destructive path. I remember I used to cope with it by partying. It was just a whole lot of madness. I'm really grateful for the progress I've made thus far. I think as well, being a creatives have the tendency to live in this world that they create in their mind of sometimes it's expectations or anticipation, or it's just a creative thing. And what I've learned is to realize that life could be unfair at times, but that is the blessing. The blessing is actually through the storm. Not wanting to preach too much here, but that's just what works for me. I have learned that the more I can find the good out of bad situations, the more I could deal less with comparison, because there's a saying that I really like: comparison is the theft of joy. So I try my best not to compare myself to what other people, may be going through, or their blessings or their breakthroughs. I just try to celebrate and just rejoice in the simple things that I accomplish from day to day. And that is how I get through. As I say, it's an ongoing battle. This short time frame doesn't permit me to go into details, but the anxiety is there. I sometimes have to do my breathing exercises and stuff like that, but all in all, I'm in a much better place, and I give thanks to that. So yeah, I said basically.
Okay, welcome back everyone to Insomniac Talks. I'm Adan Hagley, and I'm joined here with Hanif E. Benjamin.
Ah, yes.
Right, I love how that rolls off
I
the
know,
tongue.
right?
And so we're continuing our talk today on anxiety. We kind of touched on some of these symptoms, but let's kind of roll back and talk maybe about what are some of the types of anxieties. How does it manifest? I
like that you want to touch there, because there are a few. Okay. And again, because it's so common, people may not know that they have entered or they are living it. And that's the unfortunate part, and that is why I am so always grateful to help out wherever I can to disseminate information. Because as the World Health Organization said, 4 in 5 people would have some form of mental illness or depression at some point. It doesn't mean you're going to be mentally ill, but you're going to pass through that wave at some point. And so it's important for us to understand. So the first one I want to touch on is panic disorder. And that is experienced recurrent panic attacks. So people talk about, I had a panic attack, to the point where you almost go to the hospital or you are admitted. You feel as if you're getting a heart attack sometimes. Yeah. So panic attack it's reoccurring, right? Unexpected at times. That is an important thing. Okay. So sometimes you can feel when it is coming on, and there are times when it just hits you like a ton of bricks, right? Because of whatever your thought pattern may have been processing, and immediately you get into a fright or some kind of situation. A common one is a vehicle accident. So you just get into a vehicle accident and you do strange things. And people want to know, well, why did this person walk out, or they became naked, because the panic of the incident, the shock and the panic.
So it's similar to like a just post, what do you call it? Like a post
PTSD?
PTSD.
Well, not really, because PTSD takes, there must be a time, and it is part here, and that's the last one which I will come to.
Yeah.
But definitely PTSD is along that line.
Okay.
You have phobias, right? So we deal a lot with phobias, agoraphobia, all different kind of phobia. And you know, phobia is an unrealistic fear. Sometimes for people it may not be all unrealistic, but it's an unrealistic fear. For example, lightning will strike at the same place. You know, we know that it don't strike twice. Although I don't know what happened in the church in Laventille there the other day.
I missed that one.
Yeah, lightning strike twice, and they say, well, I think it was this. Yeah, so I mean, but phobia is a fear, an unreasonable fear.
I have a very unreasonable fear of birds.
Well, hearing them outside now, so are you okay?
Well, actually, it's not just birds, but like in a small space, and when they come, I don't know, just something about
and that's real, because people have spiders and all kind of things, and so phobia is a real thing for a lot of people. But you know, strange enough, a lot of people don't know that they're dealing with a phobia.
Yeah, because I'm not even sure where that came from. You understand? And I know it probably would have come from something from the childhood, something happened, some experience.
So you probably need to come sit on my couch.
Well, I don't know if
at my office. We'll have to figure that out, right? Social anxiety disorder is a real one, which is extreme fear of being judged by others in social situation. So going out, interacting, I'm talking about you lock up in your room, to the point sometimes you don't even want to come out for family. And even if you do go, that is a process, from the clothes you wear to how you look, to all kind of situation, which is just really scary, to the point where it scares you so much that you prefer to stay home, right? And I see a lot of that as well. You have obsessive compulsive disorder. I think everybody kind of know that one from TV. We kind of made that famous OCD monk. And stuff like that. But that is also real. So that's the fear of you know, you want to make sure that is this happening? Did it happen? How it's happening? You're checking, double checking. Yes. Triple checking to make sure. And so that's your mind playing real tricks on you there. So you're never certain. So you know how tiring that can be for an individual.
Isn't it weird that all of these things kind of feel like it resonated with me in some way?
But I'm saying that's what kind of
say, like, have multiple of these?
Of course, because you're along the anxiety spectrum. And so there are a number of thing that is coming to you that requires processing. So you have multiple areas, and you can have one or multiple, as well as depression, but we will come to that shortly. Okay, sure. The other one is separation anxiety disorder. And I remembered, my sister complained that when she was dropping her daughter to school every morning, she would cry, bawl, hold onto the foot, scream. So I thought something. I said, nah, I need to do this for myself to see. I said, I'm never taking her to school again. That child cried, she bawled. That happens when you go to preschool, to primary school, and also when people are going away. So separation, even in relationships, big as we are, you know, we have that challenge of separation. And so that's a real thing. Illness anxiety disorder, and that attacks families a lot. Sometimes you'll notice that family members don't want to reveal that they're ill, whether it is terminal or otherwise, because
I wasn't aware of that one.
Quite real. As a matter of fact, it's something that I'm quite interested in, which is, you know, how family treat with illnesses. Right. Because when you have some type of illness, it changes the dynamics of the family, and it creates anxiety and depression and all other sorts of illnesses jump in there, especially if you don't know how to manage it. You see, so that's a major one as well. And of course, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which is the anxiety in the trauma that follow an incident. Okay. So let me see if it's the anxiety.
There's a trauma and then the anxiety towards the trauma later on.
Correct. So I had a 76-year-old client who never drove a car because he got into an accident at the age of 13. Every time he hears a car door slams, pressure. Every time you hear a car screeches, pressure. Every time you hear engine starts, pressure. 70 years. So you can imagine his entire life was filled with anxiety.
Interesting that you say that, because the family one with the illness, I wasn't aware of that one. And I actually had a family member who, from what I understood, had a fear of like hospitals, going to hospitals. And I think that probably stuck with him till later on, where because he had some experience in a hospital younger, later on he didn't want, you have this fear or this phobia maybe of going, and then when he became ill, it's like similar with what he said, not wanting to let people know that you're ill, and then you don't want to go to the hospital. So that creates a whole fear and phobia there. I didn't think about that one. That's very interesting.
No, it's quite unique. Yeah. It's quite unique because once that type of illness sets in, especially if it's life-threatening, people, one, don't know how to deal with the news themselves.
Right.
And secondly, they don't know how the family is going to react. And so especially if there's some level of breadwinner or something like that, what is going to happen here? And I guess that's why people take insurance and all these kind of things in the event, because once you get terminally ill or some level of illness that is going to reshape your life, for want of a better terminology, it becomes a stressful event. Also, not knowing that period of diagnosing something is quite anxiety ridden. Because you don't know, you did the test and you're now awaiting the results, and so you're not sure what's really going to happen, whether it's going to be good, bad, or indifferent, and so that anxiety is real. That period,
not knowing what's in the future in general causes
so
anxiety,
basically what you said there is what it is. The uncertainty of tomorrow literally is what gets us the anxiety.
And it's interesting too, because for me, at least how I experience it, sometimes you feel anxious and you know exactly what it is. You have something coming up, some event, something. But then sometimes it's almost like I'm getting anxiety. I don't even know what it is. And I have to sit down now and try and process what is causing it.
Correct.
How would you...
And that is also real. You remember earlier we spoke about knowing that it's coming on because of what you might be dealing with.
Right.
A situation may cause you to become anxious. First day of school, your exam coming up, appraisals,
a performance.
Right up in your case, a performance, right? But you're doing extremely fine, man. You're good to go. And so these things can cause anxiety. However, the unknown, for example, will I have a job tomorrow? You're seeing how a company might be going and you're getting worried. Or again, illnesses. We don't know how that is going to go tomorrow. So we're not sure. And sometimes these things start manifesting themselves here. Because I told you, this is the engine room. And once this start going, you start to feel a particular way, your emotions. And once that jumps in, then you start to behave in a particular way. So you move from the way you think to the way you feel to the way you behave. And they all link, because if I feel this way and I believe how I feel, then my action will now,
So it's a cycle.
Of course.
So you have that thought in your head and then feeling and then action.
And so most times people would notice the behavior
and miss the first part.
Well, they'll miss it because that is internal to you.
Right.
So that is how people, but what's on with you? How you behaving strange? So what you seen with your eyes here so long? Where you hiding? Because hiding because my mind told me that, out there I can't deal with this. Especially if you have a performance that didn't go too well. You understand? You went on a F sharp instead of a B flat and caused a little bacchanal. No, you're going there. And so if you have to come back out, that is pressure. If you have some bad critique, pressure, you don't know how to deal with that. And all these different type of things, which is a myriad of issues in the whole performance world, especially in Trinidad here, which is kind of tough.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I wanted to have these talks as well, especially with musicians. I realize, again, a lot of times you think it's just you, but you realize everyone is going through the same types of things. For musicians especially, there's a lot of anxiety around just performing, on the instrument. A lot of people, they always compare themselves to other people, and there's a lot of anxiety around showcasing your art. People don't realize just going on stage, the amount of courage it takes sometimes. And that anxiety is so real, and sometimes it could literally, debilitate you, where you just don't feel to do anything.
Freeze.
You don't feel to practice, you don't feel to do anything, and you really have to find that energy to just do something,
One of the things that I found quite interesting is the community, because what you have lived and have experienced thus far is real, but not just real to you, but a lot of people, and that is why substances is so big in the industry, because you need to get that extra edge, or they want to take off that edge to bring on a different edge.
Right.
Because when you are, as you say, you are that keyboard, and the world is watching you, whether it is through live or something, and you have to deliver, and then all of that comes up. But for you, what I find more interesting is you are actually living with the mental health challenge, which is, disorder, which is anxiety.
Yeah.
So that is different to, I'm having an anxious moment to go on stage.
It's true. Yeah.
So you actually live with it. So you have to deal with that and deal with the moment itself. So you see?
Yeah.
Unlike others who may not be living with a mental health challenge, and they just have a moment where they need to get over. And I think that is where, for you, a lot of the challenge might arise. And what that leads to it in some instances is depression.
Right.
You see? And so, because depression is the closest family to anxiety. So you can have depression alone, you can have anxiety alone. You can have anxiety as a result of depression, and you can have depression as a result of anxiety. And so you see the cyclical movement between depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
And so once you are living with anxiety, it's more likely than not you will be dealing with depression as well.
And as you said, dealing with substances as well, which is something, as you said, in musician creative you see a lot of. And it is a kind of a slippery slope, because you always try to maintain a high or block out certain feelings, and that's tricky. I mean, sometimes, even just taking alcohol, you take a little drink, is fine to a certain extent, but when it's constantly you using this to not feel or not experience.
Well, let's put it this way, using it to function.
To function.
So you're using,
which is dysfunction.
Yes, so you're using a negative coping mechanism to cope. And we see that all the time, especially alcohol or substances, because you really need to get the edge off quickly. And so your volume or your intake becomes even greater challenge now, because you need to take a lot in a short space of time to get yourself pumped, for want of a better word, to hit that stage. And so when you're battling with the two, it's something that you have to deal with outside of stage. It's something that you have to treat with, because in order for you to function in a healthy way, using healthy coping mechanism is something that you literally have to work towards.
Yeah, and you have to find a balance, because a drink here or there before you go on stage is fine, but when it becomes that thing where you always need it, you realize you have to do this thing to.
So
that's when it becomes a problem.
When it becomes a dependent. It becomes a dependent where you have to, you must.
I must, or else I can't go on stage, I can't do this. And you freeze up. So that's also something to be careful of, guys, right? So we're going to take a short pause again.
Definitely.
Hear from one of my colleagues sharing their experiences. So we'll be back shortly.
Hi, my name is Diamond. I am a vlogger coming out of Trinidad, and I would have started paying attention to my mental health a few years ago, coming out of some loss I would have faced in my life, loss of friendships, loss of relationships that I found myself having a very hard time coping with. And from that, I began doing some work on myself, and I would have taken the opportunity to speak to professionals. I found that to be very helpful for me. I would have leaned on my friends for support. I had to learn to start opening up and talking to people more because I was struggling, and typically I would not want to share with people or show that I was not feeling like 100% myself, but it was a very vulnerable time for me and I had to learn to do it, and I'm very grateful that I did it. Typically at my home, mental health wasn't really something that we focused on or talked about. Nobody really had much issues about it. It just was nothing. It was really not a thing in my household, but now that I'm out of my household and I'm on my own, that's why I found it even more important for me to pay attention to it. Things that I would have done that would have helped me cope. I've read a lot. I still read a lot of material on mental health or whatever I was going through at the time or I'm going through. I always find material on that, and I find that gives you a different perspective that you would not have had before, and you get so much knowledge. You don't have to take everything, but you broaden your horizons a lot when you read. And I always champion for people to read a lot because that literally changed my life in the past few years. I would have started actively going out with my friends more, trying to do things that I always wanted to do, I just had on hold for whatever reason. Just spending more time outdoors, exercising, whatever it is that makes you happy. I would definitely recommend that for people. To people who may be going through something and need advice on coping, having been through a lot of tough situations myself that I never thought I would be able to sit here and talk about today, I would say professional help. Don't be ashamed of it. It is life-changing. It will make all the difference. It is expensive. So if you can't afford to see someone, you could inquire with your employer if they have employee assistance programs, if they could facilitate sessions for you, or you could look into the national options they have with the hotlines, etc. That would make the world of a difference. I don't think people need to be ashamed of it because everyone has their own struggles and their own things that they go through and nobody else can help you with. And I feel like a big part of it is to stop studying people and what people might think and what people might say, because I realized the hard way, people not there with you in the nights when you're struggling, people not there in your room, people not there in your house, people not helping you pay your bills. So you just have to keep it pushing and do what you have to do for you and fight for yourself every single day. And whatever avenue, however you decide to express yourself or share, I think that for me personally, when I got all this new knowledge, when I was working on myself and working on bettering my mental health, that's when I started my series, because I wanted to start conversations on it, and I was inspired to share, and then from that I had also inspired other people to share, and I feel like that's all we need to get the conversations going and to normalize seeking help.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome to Insomniac Talks. I'm Adan Hagley. I'm here with Mr. Hanif Benjamin. We're continuing.
You forgot my EA.
Sorry, correction. It's Hanif E. Benjamin, right? And so we're continuing our talks on anxiety. I've learned some things that I wasn't aware of. And so we hope that everyone is enjoying it as much as I am and being informed and hopefully something has resonated with you thus far. So we've learned a lot about what it is, how can we identify its symptoms, right? So how do we deal with this thing? It seems to be, as you said, it's normal. It's something that is a part of us. Some might have it more than others in terms of how long they experience it and it affects their everyday life. But we all will experience it in some shape or form in our lives, right? So how do we manage this thing? How do we cope with it? Especially for me, that's something I am trying to figure out. But it still is, as you know, in your field, it's an ongoing thing to deal with these things. And it can fluctuate. There are times where you're in control of it. There are times where it's really hard to manage. So how can we cope with anxiety?
I want to jump off by something you just said, which is quite interesting, which is the levels, right? Or you talk about how long people had it. And one of the interesting things that people should know, while we say it is normal, depending on the level and intensity, other things might happen.
Okay.
Right? So other things might step in. So for example, if you are living with anxiety and depression over a long period of time, other types of mental illnesses might come into play depending on what you're dealing with. Depending on your level of coping, other things might come in as well. So substance abuse and other things may also jump in there. And so it is important to understand where you are along the spectrum in relation to the whole anxiety, depression, because you could be diagnosed with clinical depression, you could be diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. So again, when you visit a clinician, depending on the test that they will do and stuff like that, you will know where you fall. And that will also inform how we treat. Now, how do we treat with anxiety, depression? Let me start with the whole clinical world first.
Sure.
So basically, therapeutic, what we do, much like this will be a therapy session, depending again on where you are, psychopharmacology or medication. Right? Critical. Now, I must tell you, we have a challenge in this country, in this diaspora, in relation to mental health. The stigma is real. Although I have seen in the last couple of years where we are becoming more and more knowledgeable and open about it, we're still far from where we should be. And therefore, people have an added stressor with medication. I tell people, you take medication for your foot, your heart, your nose, and your chest. What is the problem with taking medication for the mind? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But people don't want medication in a lot of instances. But medication is so critical sometimes because the chemical imbalance that is going on in the brain. No therapy can help the chemical imbalance. I can teach you how to cope, to develop coping mechanism, all of those good stuff. But the medicine helps you with what I can't. That is why the doctor gives you medication, because while the doctor could tell you do X, Y, Z, P, Q, the medication helps. So that's an important remedy in dealing with anxiety, depression, right? So outside of therapy and medication, which I call the clinical aspect, we can do a lot of things. For example, we can begin to become self-aware. I often ask people, how self-aware are you about what you are dealing with? I find that you are quite astute, you're self-aware, which is a good thing, because it means that my job is a little easier. Not that I'll charge you less, right? But my job becomes easier because you know what you have been dealing with. You know what it looks like, what it sounds like. So becoming self-aware is number one.
And well, for those listening, it's a process, because it will move from, as I told you, from my first experience before going to school, it's like having no idea what this is, to now realizing, okay, this is something that's ongoing, to, periods where, as I said, it comes and then it's like, I have no idea what's causing it. So it forces you now to have to sit and think. Correct. And then when it hits you, it's like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that was bothering me. Because I guess your mind sort of pushes it aside to not have to think about it, And so it's a process. And for me, more recently, in the last year or two, I've taken it very seriously to try to understand, as you say, myself, become aware, practice things like meditation.
Definitely.
Just sure you talk about that really helps to understand what your process is.
That's number two on the list after self-aware.
Self-aware, that's so
right. So once you know and what you're living with, what you're dealing with, I strongly recommend meditation. A quiet moment. I don't mean going and find a tree and all that good. Just any corner, any moment. Music is so critical as part of meditation, and you really just get centered. The reason why meditation is so important is because we need to quiet our mind. Our mind needs to be quiet. And I remember when I did that training with you guys, one of the things I often ask is, when last you took a shower? And everybody would laugh because, well, I bathed this morning or I bathed this evening. Well, you see with that. But I said, did we really take a shower? Did we take a shower? And what do I mean by that? Did you go into the bathroom and feel the water, smell the soap, the shampoo, whether it is blue soap or sweet soap, whatever it is? Did you put the lard in your hair and feel it? Well, in your case, your beard.
The beard,
right?
Yeah, the shampoo.
Right, you see, I'm trying to get mine.
Yeah,
going, I tried real hard.
Respect.
I grooving. Yeah, and I'm saying, our mind in the bathroom is already on the 10 things we have to do down the road.
I mean, sometimes I'm in the shower and like 10 minutes, 15 minutes past, you just thinking about what's going on next, and you ain't really. So you have to really learn to slow down your mind, and I guess that's why the meditation helps to quiet the mind so that you can actually experience, actually process in the moment. That's the hardest part of it.
So I am saying, I mean, we're sitting here, and if I were to ask you, this your thing in here? That round globe?
Yes, the moon.
So probably not you. But if I were to ask somebody, how many colors that have gone through since we've been sitting here? We should know that because it's stunning. But because our mind is so far down the road, we're not paying attention to the things right in front. So the other exercise that I also ask people to do is feel things.
Yeah.
You know, there's a nice gray. I could see myself in a suit. Yeah. This gray, you know.
I have a color like this.
Like, okay, the bamboo little struggling, but we could live with that. You know what I mean? Be present. Yeah. I ask people, what color underwear you have on? Not because I want to know, but because I want you know, and we don't even remember, like, damn, what color today, Even simply at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, I asked you what you had for lunch, and you had to take a 30 seconds to. Because our mind is always so far ahead that we don't take time to pause. We don't take time to just say, one step. And so I say, have mindfulness. And that mindfulness is seeing, feeling, touching, being present. When you're in that bathroom, be present in that bathroom. When you are, changing your clothes, be present. I always say, change it. We button our shirt one way, change it around. Yeah. You'll notice we will take off the shirt because it's frustrating. Yeah. Even simple things like how we tie our shoelacing. We are not present, Ian. And it causes a lot of problems with the mind because the mind is already so far ahead. So what you want to do is literally create a pause.
Right.
Stop. So you become self-aware. Then you meditate. And that meditation is to help you create a pause. Yeah. Important factors. Stay healthy, exercise, eating. Because when you are up all night, you find the craziest things to eat, including cake and ice cream.
I have some fudge in the fridge.
Ain't nobody want no fudge. I have been trying, so I am losing. I'm on bush right now. So I am just eating salad, right? But that's a craziness. So you up all night producing, so you're eating. Your ability to exercise. Yeah. So when you're going through this, you want to be active. Yeah. You want to be exercising. You want to be eating right. The right things. Yeah. What hour of the night you're eating? What does that mean for you?
What time you go and sleep? Too?
Correct. Well, that's the next thing. Yeah. Sleeping is so critical. And so a lot of times, because of our mind, we don't sleep.
Yeah.
And when we don't sleep, our mind gets further tired. When our mind gets further tired, we make mistakes. We are not able to cope. We have breakdowns, meltdowns, for want of a better term. And so sleeping is critical. And so it takes me back to the whole clinical point where medication
might,
because sometimes we need to get you to a place where you just need to rest your mind.
And I know creatives could struggle with that because a lot of us tend to be night owls. Mm-hmm. And even sometimes you get in sleep, but it's what time you're going to sleep. And you don't get that deep sleep. I know that's something I struggle with, that REM sleep. And I mean, sometimes you might really need something to help you to sleep.
Yeah, just knock out. And sometimes that important factor, time. Because our body, our circadian rhythm it was designed that way, and when we move it out of that rhythm, we have problems. So now our body's trying to understand what is day, what is night, because things happen in our body that should be happening at night, and if we are not at sleep, those things don't happen. So your life expectancy or your life quality has been compromised now because you're not sleeping.
Guys, get rest, go to bed. I mean, it's a challenge, especially with us, it's a challenge.
You have to.
I get things done any night. And I know Gerald could speak the same. It's a challenge.
Because you see, if you don't do these things, you start to get jittery.
Yeah.
And then we drink coffee and or caffeine that cause even further jitterness. Is that the terminology? Jitterness. Well, we're gonna use that word today.
We use that for now.
Yeah, jitterness, right? And so you're jumpy in Trinidad, and you're always jumpy. Yeah. You're on edge. So I come to tell you good morning, you want to bite off my head, right? Because you're on edge. And so that's because you're not sleeping, you're not coping, and that is why those steps are critical to take, because it helps you in your own natural way, right? Because not everybody can go to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a clinician, right? Not everybody can afford it, and not everybody want to go to the public system, again, because of the stigma. So outside of that, we can try our own remedies at home, but this is not meant to be medical advice, mind you, but definitely there are things you can do to just center yourself.
And kind of to go off topic, but there's something I wanted to ask about, because I saw a meme with people talking about anxiety, and someone talking about their anxiety and how it makes them not be able to do things. You know, they're tired, they feel that. And people were basically making fun of the person and saying that they're lazy and you need to just, and it's like, people don't understand how much it could affect your ability to do things. So I was trying to understand, show people that, anxiety is not necessarily laziness. Or how would you determine if the difference? Because some people sometimes I feel that tiredness, and sometimes it's because of my mind is going, or as I say, my sleep pattern. But I guess, as you're saying, a lot of it also boils down to your diet and sleeping and exercise, which is something I know I need to work on now. Because I had a rhythm of that before, but now, not so much. So now I'm like really paying attention to my energy levels. I was like, okay, I think I need to put back a regimen of exercise. So that's where that self-awareness comes in.
I was not going to make that point.
To know what you might need, because I try getting sleep, I'm still tired. Sometimes I do that still. So what is it? So maybe my diet needs to change. Make some adjustments there. So it requires some time, and you have to be, what's the word? You have to not be too hard on yourself. I think is important.
And that goes with what you were saying prior, which is, people are very cruel. Unless you're in a wheelchair, unless you are in a bandage or a cast, people really don't think that anything else exists.
They can't see it.
And that's what we have been working on when I say we, the mental health fraternity, in terms of really helping people understand what this is. And I say to people all the time, think about a very big fat person, empty that person's body, load it with big stone and walk up Lady Chancellor. That is what depression and anxiety feels like. It's real, it's painful. And the simplest thing in life, which is just brushing your teeth, those basic things, showering, becomes difficult. And so people tell you, open the blind, or you're lazy, or just want to take a walk. That is not how this works. That is not how this works. And so that is why people prefer not to speak to it. And say, well, I going through this or I going through that, because they feel as if they will be judged, and because we are dealing with in a time where the stigma is so real, people tend to kind of just hold their own, and that's why I give you so much kudos, because to come out and talk about this, for all I think it will help people, but not just help people, but it will help them from a real perspective, because you're a real person who have lived and continue to live it. And so I really appreciate that. So a big part of it is the self-awareness, because if you don't know, you can't treat. If you don't know what you're dealing with, you can't really help. You think you're sleeping, but your mind is remember the old
and you
Cortina?
wake up tired. It's like I sleep 8 hours, but you wake up tired.
Well tired, and you try to figure out what did I do last night? I'm pulling no chain. So what going on with me? Your
body not rested.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So this is the goal, guys. We want to normalize this conversation, right? It's okay to be having these struggles, right? I myself struggle with it. It's something that I deal with constantly. Sometimes you're on top of it, sometimes it's a challenge. You just have to keep working on it. Don't be too hard on yourself and try to become more self-aware, right? And figure out what it is do I need here. Sit down and think about it and allow yourself to feel what you're going through. All right?
Definitely.
So we're going to take a short pause again, hear from some of my colleagues, and we will be right back.
So hi, I'm Vonette Bigford. I'm a musician living and working right here in this beautiful island of Trinidad and Tobago. Really happy to be part of this project in support of Adan and his insomnia shenanigans. It's such an important topic for us to be able, such an important thing for us to be able to discuss mental health and mental health issues. I've been very honest about my journey in terms of the fact that I have not ever been diagnosed clinically depressed, but I know that I go through my moments of very depressive episodes. I don't know if it's, I don't know what it is, and really dark spaces. If I were to be honest, I would say I've always had that, but it was exacerbated and it kind of got a lot more after my pregnancy. I have a 7-year-old son, and I got pregnant, and it was a really difficult pregnancy. I wasn't very well for a lot of the time, and post-pregnancy, when I had my son, from C-section, I wasn't able to care for him as I really wanted to, or as I really should have as a new mother. And I think that kind of sent me into a kind of serious tailspin. Some months of some really dark feelings and dark spaces. And it's been like that ever since. Not as bad, but I have my moments when I go into this space and I can't even explain to you all what it feels like, or sometimes people ask me to explain what I do to get out of it, and sometimes I really just don't know. Sometimes it's just time and prayers and meditation and just laying still, So I'm really glad that we're talking about it, because as artists, it's very difficult for us artists, especially now at this time. Of course, now the pandemic, of course, has not added any value because we're down, we're not earning, we're not able to create as much as we should, because of course you're studying the bills and you're studying everything else surrounding the management of this pandemic and just trying to survive it. So it is a challenging time, and we have to really, for me, I tell people, it started to get better for me when I acknowledged that there was something that I was going through. I don't know if it's hormonal, I don't know if it's a cyclical depression, I don't know what it is, but when I acknowledged that there's something that goes on with me, I found that I was able to address it more. I like to be honest about what I do and how I feel about so many different things. So I acknowledge, and I'm as honest as possible with everyone about how I feel and what I go through. Talk about it, find somebody, find a support system, talk about it, acknowledge it, and address it. Spend some quiet time if that helps. Listen to some music if that helps. That didn't help me, but listen to some music if that helps you. Reach out to people, because especially at this point in time, we're all going through the same thing. So you may find that the emotions that you're feeling, somebody else is feeling the same thing. So reach out to people and try to find whatever creates that space of bliss or comfort for you, and just stick with it. But first and foremost, as I said, acknowledge, be honest with yourself, acknowledge and address. So here goes.
Hi, my name is Ajibala, and I'm a singer, songwriter, and percussionist from Trinidad and Tobago. I think for me, it all started when I was a child. Yes, as a child. Many people would say, what child doing with mental health issues? What you know about depression? What you worrying so? You had nothing to pay for. A cooking, cleaning, washing, starching, and ironing. What worries you have? But listen, as a child, even though I grew up in a single parent home actually, with lots of love, I still had a lot of extended family around. However, one particular incident, just one, triggered me. Imagine that. And that particular incident was one whereby I asked my dad to take me out. I mean, I went to school, my friends saying, they just go out with their father and so by so one thing. So I wanted that experience. So I asked the man, I said, Dad, can you take me out? Think. Yeah, I'll come for you, I'll pick you up. On the day now, you will call my house phone and tell me, well, I can't come again. Listen, up to this day, and people would say that you shouldn't be holding on to these things, but up to this day, I try my best not to get overly excited. I try my best not to get too close to people. I try my best to tell people, do not promise me anything. And the reason why I tell them, do not promise me anything, is because when I am promised something, it takes me back to the situation. And I often go into a state of depression. I often go into this mood where I'm in my head trying how to fix it. How can I make myself happy? How can I come out of this zone? And sometimes I'm left trapped because it's not enough time to fix it. I can't just brush it off. Some people say, well, pray it off. It don't just happen just like that. Really and truly, it's not that easy. Because it's there playing on your mind. What in fact has helped me though over the years, and more so in particular, probably about 2-3 years ago, was me making the decision to record my album Bliss. Bliss has enabled me to really dig deep within myself and show parts of me that I really haven't shared with anyone. And a lot of it was me singing to myself. Singing to myself has helped my depression. Singing to myself sweetly in a lullaby format has enabled me to really be healed by my own voice. And what it is I realized is that I used to put up some short clips on Facebook, and that also helped persons who were experiencing depression just as myself. So, for anyone who might be experiencing mental health issues, I definitely think that you should find your bliss. I definitely think that you should find what is your first love, what is the thing that makes you most happy. And trust me, it would definitely help. Thanks.
Okay, welcome back guys to Insomniac Talks. So we've talked a bit about coping. If you feel like you struggle with anxiety, what are the signs? How can you deal with it? But there's something else we wanted to touch on, and that's for people who have friends, family who might be struggling with anxiety. How do you deal with your friends and your family when you see and you notice they're struggling with anxiety or maybe another type of mental health illness? So Hanif, what can you tell our viewers about how do you deal with their friends and loved ones?
Well, in the first instance, patience. Patience for the unknown. Because I tell you this, most times, persons really don't know what they're dealing with. They don't know what they're living with. They don't know what they know that I have a problem, but they're not sure what that problem might be. And so, your social environment becomes critical. And when I say your social environment, the people who surround you, the people,
the support system.
The people who live with you, because they are your first line of defense. Because Ian, you could start acting strange, And you may not know that you're acting strangely. And somebody in your circle say, hey, what's going on with you? You're a little snappy every day. What's going on?
Yeah.
That could be a spouse, your partner. It could be a friend, a co-worker, colleague. And so the first sign is just patience.
Yeah.
That something is going on. We're not sure what it is, but something is going on.
Sometimes you don't even know something.
Yeah,
they will
yeah,
point
yeah.
out and you're like, oh, it's true, I've been doing that.
Yeah. But stick a pin. The how we do it is going to be even more critical. Because I could come at you, I block you because I find you keep coming off here on your phone. Or I could come and cuss you out, or I could come and be hard or harsh, not knowing that something is going on. So in exercising patience, you really want, in the first instance, to figure out, hey, something ain't right and I want to support you. Let's figure it out. That's the first thing. And the reason why I say that is because people who are living with challenges don't like to be burdened or burdensome. So they tend to withdraw. And as friends or people in your social environment, you want to recognize when people are pulling away. And people might pull away not nice at times. Because I can't really pull away from you. We good. So I had to create a bacchanal now.
Create some reason
So,
that
yes,
I want to vex with
yes,
you. But
yes,
it's not
yes,
even
yes.
that. It might be some, they use that as an excuse to pull away. And it's
That's
not
what they
even
do.
that bothering you.
Right, and so what I'm saying is, so we really need for people to be patient in that sense. And thirdly, we want people to understand that the issue is not you, and you is not the issue. The mental health is not the person, and the person is not the mental health. That is why I'm always so... one of my pet peeves is when people say, the madman or the bipolar man. I don't go around saying the heart attack man or the hypertensive man. And if he's a hypertensive man, no, so it's a person who is living with. So we identify you as the person and we identify the with, whatever that with is. So whether it is anxiety, depression. So once we understand that your actions may not be you, but because of the illness. And so providing that level of support you need is going to be important. But they too may need support.
Right.
Because dealing and living with people who are living with mental illness is not an easy thing. Especially if you don't understand it. So psychoeducation is important. I think that we have a lot of information out there for people to not know. And so it is important to start not self-diagnosing now or diagnosing your friend, but to have some level of, I see this. It's time to call Hanif.
Yes, definitely. Call.
You understand?
Yes.
Because you are a professional. And I don't want you to think that this session here makes you now think calling me for certificate or all kind of thing. Hey, I have a certificate in treating depression. No. But if you could identify, then we can treat. And if you could identify in your friend and you say, listen, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. This is cause for concern. We need to do an intervention. We need to reach a professional to say, you know what, this is what we have seen, but we don't know. But something ain't right.
And what are some of the avenues that people, if they're looking to find help, that they can reach out to speak to someone?
Definitely. Let me start with the most critical. If you
Where can they find you?
Well, yes, sir.
Yourself?
But I'm now going to say, because I'm this is bigger than me, huh?
Yeah.
This is bigger than me. People will find me because you need to find me, but this is bigger than me. But if you're experiencing some kind of episode that you cannot control, you need to go to the emergency room. Again, a lot of people don't like to go to the emergency room because they don't want to go to the mad ward, but it is not, right? You need help. And so go to the emergency room. Outside of that, definitely you want to reach your psychologist, or even if you don't have one, let's start with your doctor, your GP, your general practitioner, whatever, family doctor. Let's start there and then take it to the next step. More likely than not, they will make a referral to a psychologist or to a clinician. But definitely, you want to call Hanif at the Center for Human Development. We will take care of you. But at the end of the day, I want you to be able to treat with things at home to the point where you don't need to call Hanif, But if you need to call Hanif, call Hanif. But we need to get you to a place where you could recognize, become self-aware, and begin to say, you know what, let me change my lifestyle. Let me deal with what I am dealing with. And reach out. But I think that is hard for some people, Ian, because they believe that I alone in this. You ain't going to understand what I'm going through.
Yeah, people feel as if they're alone. And again, this is why we want to have that conversation. Especially as the creatives and the musicians, as I keep saying, because that's my field. And so many times we go through these things, we feel as if, well, just not really making sense. I mean, now with COVID, things being very stressful, not as much, creative live performances happening. It can be very stressful. So, over the break, I was like, you know what? I need to continue the work, that I started last year with the album and continue the conversation about...
So then tell me how the conceptualization with Insomniac and you and the album, tell me how did that all emerge?
Well, as I said at the beginning, it started with going to school and facing this change, this shift in my life and this new challenge. I got into Berklee College of Music, and that was a big thing, a goal for me. And it was like, okay, how am I going to deal with this change? So that's when I first started to experience not being able to sleep, heart racing, tightness in your chest.
Performance anxiety as well.
Yeah, not even before, just sleeping, normal day to day. And that is where the theme song for the album came to me as the melody literally just came to me, and I started to write in the night, And over time, as I started to become more aware, as you said, with what I was going through, what are some of my struggles, I started to come up with the concept of the things that keep me up at night. Because people that know me, I'm someone that's always thinking, I'm always in my head, I'm always 10 steps ahead, and which could be good, but also could be bad, as you say, when moving too fast. So learning to slow down is important. And I was like, oh, this is a good concept to have, the things that keep me up at night. And so Insomnia was born, the theme song, and then the other songs I have where, there's one called Runaway, which is like running away from your problems and just go into that place in your head where you can just find some peace and relaxation. Shadow Dance is another song that we have. Kind of plays on, darkness and light with shadows. So, and well, at the concert, we did a lot of things, touched on, love and heartache and, things that are going on in the world. I'm always in my head. I'm always thinking about what is next. Things, I'm a bit of a perfectionist in a way. That's why I said when you talk about the different types of things, phobias, OCD, it kind of resonates with me because a lot of the times I feel like if I'm kind of a perfectionist.
And perfectionism is, I think it needs to be in the DSM-5 diagnostic and statistical, because it literally can keep you in the same spot for quite some time.
It's like I know exactly how I want something to be. And when things don't work out exactly how I want it, you kind of fall apart. So I had to learn, still learning, so not like it's fixed, how to manage with unforeseen expectation. When things happen that you didn't plan, it's like, okay, this is happening.
But COVID.
Tell me about it. COVID was, I would say a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways because it allowed me to slow down. Which he says is important.
It did that.
And I had time to think and reflect and reevaluate what is important, what was important, what I was thankful for. I mean, you realize I don't have it as bad as I thought I had it. There are people in a lot of worse situations through the pandemic. And you just be thankful and sit back and say, hey, I have a roof over my head, food, I have a job. So it's been a process, but insomnia is something that I want to continue and keep that conversation because there's a lot of things that people are struggling with that we want to continue talking about. And that was the inspiration, and it's something that's very personal to me, guys, and something that I want to continue not make it normal. Like we could just sit down, we here just having drinks and just and as you say, it's true, I think people are becoming more aware.
Yes, that's important.
I've been to a couple of events and lines with people where it's like I realize people are the kind of conversations here is changing. Where people are,
Right.
especially men. That's another thing is to talk about, like men being able to talk.
Well,
about
that's a whole series
by
itself, because you are quite right, because men seldom speak about emotions,
how you feel,
right? And so they tend to express emotions in different ways, most times unhealthy. And so you're quite right. So dealing with mental health challenge plus being a man is difficult in itself. But as I said, that's a whole topic as to how you treat with it, even in this type of world, the creative type of world. Because when you create from you. That is what it is, an extension.
It's personal.
Yeah.
Especially singers. On that side, your voice is part of you. So when you put yourself out there, that's like you. And when somebody critiques that or my work, when someone listen to my album and say, "Well, I don't really like this," and that is literally part of you.
Definitely.
So it takes a lot to just put yourself out there and be vulnerable. Yeah.
And so when you okay, so I'm hearing where you want to end up with this, because I'm hoping that there'll be a part 2 to this where it will not call Insomniac, because now you'll be sleeping, right? but for now, that is what we are dealing with, the whole insomnia. How is, like, literally you from your mental perspective, how are things with you as you continue to create this? Do you... And I want to ask a very weird question.
No problem.
And the weirdness comes with whether or not mental illness is now a crutch to some degree, where it has now allowed you to move into a different realm of creativity. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying that is because I honestly believe, while I'm a clinician, and some people might give me flack for this, but I personally believe that having anxiety is not all bad if you can manage and control. Because some people use that anxiety to create, to build, to lead. And so for me, my work with you would have been, how do we manage? Because it serves a purpose.
Yeah.
I know someone who owns a business and he's quite brilliant, but serious anxiety.
Yeah.
And that anxiety allows him to be creative in creating companies. So why stop it? If you understand what I'm saying.
Definitely.
And so for me, the question to you is whether or not you see it like that, and whether it's something that can be managed or removed. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think you're right. It definitely is something that can help, especially with the creative process. I think once, from what I seem to observe with myself, once I'm engaged in something that I'm very passionate about, and it allows me to be creative, it definitely helps, especially weirdly enough when time is against you and you're just in that space. Like the process of even doing the album and the concert was very stressful. Juggling that with work, teaching, and working through all of my holidays, but it didn't feel fair. It actually managed it pretty well compared to times before where I felt like I wasn't as good as managing it. So I know I'm getting better, but it actually helps. That I was like, okay, like I force myself with a deadlines. Okay, it has to be done by this time, and it helps me once I'm in that creative space. If I'm in a situation where something that I don't really want to have to deal with, it can be a bit stressful.
So herein lies the conundrum, where it helps in the creative space, but outside of that, it can be a crutch, or a difficulty. And so for you, it would really be, how do we manage both, to manage when I'm in that creative space, but also how do I manage when I'm not in that creative space, to not have it consume me or consume my existence.
And that's a challenge, because many things in life you will not want to do or be passionate about. It's just things that you have to get done. And that is when it becomes a problem. It's like, things start to become difficult, you know. So that is the challenge, and it's something I'm still working on. But I think I'm getting better. Trying to slow down and work on
But as I said, what I like about you is that self-awareness, right? That insight you have, and that allows you to really be able to compartmentalize at times and really move forward. And I think that is the beginning and most powerful step for anybody who's living with anxiety, depression, and how you work that in your work, your creative, and your life overall is also a beautiful thing, especially if you could continue to create such beautiful music. I mean, because I'm a jazz fan. I really like jazz, and I like the music that you produce as well. And so I see great things from this when we can talk about mental illness in such a way that it is not stigmatizing or making it seem weak or you know, a crutch or something like that. I think it's a beautiful thing.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the support. And I want to thank you for coming here and sharing your expertise with us. I think I learned a lot today, right? I hope that the viewers at home, you all learned something resonated with you and helped you in some way, right? And if you are going through something, guys, know that it's okay. Many people are going through it, and it is manageable. It is something that can be dealt with. So fear not. And if things are bad, you can call Hanif. Right?
Definitely.
We will put his information so that you can contact him or get in contact with someone else who can assist you. So this has been Insomniac Talks. I'm Adan Hagley again. This was Mr. Hanif E. Benjamin.
Thank you.
And we want to wish you all a good night, good day, good night, all right? And yeah.
Blessings.
Blessings. Cheers. Hey guys, this is Adan Hagley. I have some exciting news for you. On the 10th of October, I'm going to be having the first of a series of talks entitled Insomniac Talks. And we're going to be talking about some topics: anxiety, depression, what is it? How do we cope with it? So stay tuned to my page, Adan Hagley Music, on Facebook. And then the following day, the 11th of October, is my birthday. So we're going to live stream my debut concert, Insomnia, live at the Little Carib, to celebrate, reminisce a little bit, enjoy the music. So I want you all to lock in, stay tuned, see you all there.